In this video, we're going to address the problem that I know a lot of people have, and there's always that pot with that wonderful plant in it, but the soil, which used to be up close to the top, has dropped so much. And I want to show you what to do with it. It's not just a matter of pouring soil in on top. Need a little more care, but really, it's easy to do. So follow along. Hi, I'm Bowtie Dave. Hello and welcome to Bowtie Life, where we talk mostly about life in the garden. And we are talking about the garden today. I do want to point out, look at this beautiful big plant over here. We're going to be covering that in our upcoming part 3 of our monthly garden tours. And we've already recorded and published the first part. As of the recording today, the second part actually comes out, I believe, on the 20th or 24th. I can't remember. The second part, which is half the backyard, and then we'll cover these raised beds in the third part. So please subscribe so you don't miss a thing. There's a lot of neat things going on. It's just so exciting to me to see what God has created in the garden and what he has made into this to make it grow so abundantly. And it's a disheveled mess, but you know what? It's my disheveled mess and I love it. We are going to talk about a problem that I know everybody has, that has plants, whether they're inside in house plants or outside on decorative plants like these. We all end up with a pot whose soil has sunk so deep. And this, I mean, my goodness, this is sunk at least 9 or 10 inches down here. I mean, I'm just barely touching the top of the soil. It's like that deep. So this soil has sunk down. The reason why it has sunk so much is because when I did these, I filled them with a lot of compost. Now, compost is pure nutrients, right? So as time goes by, and these things have been in here for 2 years now, as time goes by, the plants here will eat the nutrients, and that's where that soil is disappearing. A little bit runs out the bottom as well, but it gets to a point like these where if you lift up the bottom, you can actually see fine roots growing out the bottom. This thing is realizing it needs more space. That's all there is to it. And I have not pulled this out yet to see the root ball that's underneath this, but I have a feeling it is probably bound. If it's not bound, it's going to be very soon. In fact, this is part of what we're going to be doing here first, is pulling this out. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. It's pretty loose. And I set this up here and look around. Okay, so it's not as root bound as I thought it would be. Let me get the camera down here where you can see. So before we go much further, be sure and comment if you've got plants like this where the soil has sunk. In fact, you can see here, here's the pot. That's how much that soil has sunk. It really sunk a lot. And it's a beautiful plant. It's a chrysanthemum, otherwise known as mums. But notice all the brown growth here. There's so much stem here because it had to get up so high just to get to the light. And that's problematic for the development of the plant. I really would like for this thing to grow more nice flowers and grow a little thicker, and we will do that. You can see we've cut this back a few times, but so the roots down here. Now this plant is primarily over here. I think there's another one. No, it's just the one plant. Oh, I think it's the other one. Anyway, so, and there's other stuff. Oh, there's a snail shell. Huh, wonder where that came from. Anyway, so you can see there's leaves down here. These are from the compost that we put in the bottom. We actually just bought these plants at our local big box store. Mrs. Bowtie saw them, and she loves good flowers like this. But you can see here, look at these roots. They're getting out to the edge. They're starting to reach down, starting to look for more nutrients because it has probably depleted this original section of nutrients that came with the plant. So we need to do a couple things here. Number one, we need to add soil. and raise this thing up. You don't want to just dump soil on top. Most plants, when you dump on top, you've got a crown right here where the plant meets the roots. And this is a very sensitive spot to some plants. Now there are vining plants that will put roots out anywhere. Tomatoes, for example. Pothos, if you got a houseplant pothos, those you can bury as deep as you want because they'll grow roots everywhere. But with this thing here, we need to keep this ground, this crown at soil level. So we really need to add into the bottom of this pot. And as we add into the bottom, we'll have to add into the side as well. Now, this actually looks really good. I do see this wrapping of these roots right there. That's not so bad that it's going to become a problem, but I will kind of tickle those a little bit if they're too bad. If they're really bad, let me show you another thing you can do. So this here is called a hori-hori, has a serrated edge on here. This is not a requirement. I mean, you can use an old steak knife from the kitchen if you want to. We have plenty of old kitchen steak knife sets that we could tap into, and I have tapped into for tools. But that serrated edge, you can actually go through here and just cut those roots. And see, I actually severed off some of the roots. But what I did here is I disturbed the roots, and they're going to say, oh, I can't go that way anymore. They send a little hormone back to the next little node. In fact, here's the root I cut off. It comes back up. I can barely tell. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there's a little node. Oh, there's a little node right up here on that root. And it'll send the hormone up, and that'll start shooting out a root. And so you're just basically disturbing those roots a little bit. You can also use a pair of clippers. You can use a pair of old scissors. I mean, you just want to disturb it just a little bit. There's not a lot of roots over on this side, mostly because the plant's right here, close here. It's down this side, but you can just cut, and you'll notice I'm going up and down. So I'm not really cutting off a lot of roots. I know I'm cutting some off, but this is going to be healthy for the plant. Now, when we put this back in, I'm going to try to center this a little bit in the pot, but that's a little bit later. So you want to make sure those roots look good. These actually look really good. You'll pull some plants out, and they'll just be wrapped and wrapped and wrapped and wrapped in roots. And those you want to get in there and snip down through those roots vertically and just disturb them. Sometimes you can just tickle them, where you can take the tips of your fingers and go in the soil and get some ends out. If it's not so bad, if it's just wrapped and wrapped, if it's solid roots, you really need to cut down. You can actually pull off roots. In this case, we don't really need to pull off any roots because it's in pretty good shape. So I've been saying I needed to do this to this plant for a very long time. I have been deadheading. That means picking off the old blooms off the top here, and it puts out new blooms, which is kind of cool, but it's not a lot of color. Ultimately, we're going to have to cut these back and get some new growth coming out of this once we're done here. So anyway, that's the roots, how to treat the roots. And roots are actually kind of like the plants. Like, we're going to be cutting these things back like that. That's it. All the blooms are spent. Oh, there's actually some new blooms coming out, but they'll come out slowly. But this thing is going to get the notice, and it's going to come back and start growing from an earlier node. Now, in this particular case, I might go a little lower. I'm not going to cut everything, and I'm doing it now so you can kind of see exactly what I'm doing. I'm not going to cut everything. I might skip that one. I'm going to leave some of these that have a flower here and there. There's some buds there. I'm going to leave that. I'm going to trim a lot of these so that this thing can start putting life back into the root ball, growing those roots, eating more nutrients. And see, now I'm going to leave that leaf right there. Boom. Okay. And now, folks, I am not an arborist. Let me get the disclaimer in here. I'm a handyman, and I am learning this stuff. I'm not great at it. Ooh, there's one that's growing out of the bottom. I don't want to cut that. I'm not great at it. I am learning. But one of the things I'm learning is how to keep these things healthy. And so, anyway, I'll thin these out, and we'll get a lot of this extra growth in here cut out so that it has room to breathe, basically. Room to breathe. So see, that's a nice thick stem. I want to keep some of the thinner stems like that right there. That's a nice thin stem. We're going to keep that. Same thing with the roots though. We're talking about these roots. We're kind of pruning the roots. It's called root pruning. And there's different ways to do it. This is what you do with a plant like this. And it's a very common practice. It can be a little painful at times. I've been doing this, I'm in year 5 of successful gardening. And so I'm still kind of new. And no, I'm not kind of new. I'm flat out new. And I'm still learning things and figuring this stuff out. But as I'm going along here, I like bringing you along to get an idea of what I'm learning, and hopefully you can either be inspired or learn what works and what doesn't work. So what happens with this, I told you about the 3-part garden tour. In part 1 of the garden tour, after the strawberry patch and the brown turkey fig, I come to the mums every single month. And you'll be able to see, if you're watching this months later, go to one of those garden tours, the first part, and look about a quarter of the way through for the mums, and you can get an update on how these are doing. So, and you're welcome to follow along and be sure to subscribe. It's free. It's no charge to subscribe, so you don't miss a thing that comes out. And I'm still deadheading. I do that with these things just out of habit anymore. So what we're going to do here is we're going to be putting all this mess, slide it over, into this pot. And you can see here, this is a lot of the, actually I recognize the content here. This is the lot of the horse bedding muck that I get for free from our local equestrian center. And I have carted well over 100 yards out of that place. I think we're probably about up to 160 yards maybe of compost we've dug out of there, and I use it for everything. It has a lot of this wood chip in it. And actually I see little bits of wood in there still, but that wood chip, this stuff has been sitting for 2 years, so it's not holding nitrogen, it's not robbing the soil. It's actually doing really good stuff. I say 2 years, 2 or more years. Some of it's been there over 20 years. So I'm working on a plan to see if I can get more out of it. But I want to talk about what I'm going to be filling this big old pot with right now. So let me turn the video back up a little bit, or the camera back up a little bit. So when we're refilling our pots, we have a few different options we can take. Now first off, you got to take into consideration where this plant is going to be. Is it an indoor plant? Well, if it's an indoor plant, you'll want to go with some kind of potting mix. And this is bought in the store. I like this brand, Stay Green. I buy it at my local Lowe's. It's cheap and it's very consistent. One of the biggest problems I find with the cheap potting mixes and garden mixes and so forth is the inconsistency. I get one bag, oh, it looks great. All right, this is the brand for me. I buy the next bag, it's all sand. Great drainage, but there's no organic matter in it. So I've been buying Stay Green for a while. I know some people have commented that their Stay Green from their Lowe's is inconsistent. I have a feeling that Stay Green is probably made in different places for different parts of the country. But if you want to go inside, you want to stick with a nice clean potting mix of some kind, not something that was stored out in the garden open. This was not. This has been stored inside. I reserved this for my indoor plants because it doesn't have bugs, it doesn't have extra weed seed in it, it doesn't have a lot of stuff that you don't want in your pot. So another thing that you can use, now if you watch any of my videos, you will have seen that several months ago I made a bucket of seed starting mix of my own mixture, and this is that bucket, the same bucket I used way back then at the beginning of the year, and I kind of maintained it. I put water in it on occasion. I'll put up, a couple cups of water in here so it stays a little bit moist. It is a little moist. It doesn't really stay together. It's a little dry, but I don't believe it'll be hydrophobic. That means having difficult soaking up water. Things can get so dry like a desert, when the water falls on it, it just kind of beats up and rolls off. We don't want that. So anyway, this is another good option that I'm going to be using today. It is pretty clean stuff. It came out of, the base of it came out of that very blue bag, which stays inside. I added to it a couple of fertilizers, which we're going to talk about here in a second. And because it's left over from like 6 months ago, I need to get this used up because it's July. I'm about to start seeds for the fall, and I don't want to use this old stuff. I want to go ahead and get it processed out so I can make a new batch. And so we're going to be using this. Now, both these options, if you've kept this stuff clean and there's not a lot of bugs in it, then these could work for indoor plants. Now, I'll bet if I dug through here, I probably could find a bug. I'm just whipping through here. I don't see anything right off. I know I already have killed 2 bugs out of here, little beetles. Fed them to the lizards. Anyway, there's stuff in here though. This has been sitting uncovered in the Florida room, which is pretty secure, but I know we get some bugs in there. So I'm not sure this would be great for indoor plants for everybody. I would use it personally. I would use it. We're not we don't have a super orderly home anyway, so I can deal with occasional things in there and not worry about it too much. So there is a third option, and this third option is only if you're going to be putting these plants outside like I am with these. And I need to stress that, people. What I'm about to show you is for outside use only, because over here in this bucket I have compost from our outdoor compost bin, including yard clippings, leaves, shredded leaves, kitchen scraps, tons and tons of stuff. This particular pile is from not last winter, the winter before. We started making this back in 2022. Yes, back in 2022 we started making what's in here. This is like some of the very last stuff of my 2022 compost. This stuff has worms in it. This stuff has weed seeds in it. This stuff has insects. It wouldn't be hard. In fact, I can see there's a bug crawling around right there right now. It's not hard to find an insect. Do not put this indoors. I would not put this in my house. As disorderly as it gets, I'm not putting this in my house. This is going into pots that are going outside. They can have as many bugs as they want to. I like the bugs. I like the biome. I like the diversity in here that creates all the good stuff in there that nutrifies the soil. And that's what I'm going to be using for these pots. I am going to use up that blue bin right there. Probably put about half of that in each one of these pots. But we'll finish it off with this stuff here. In fact, looky there. There's some kind of wormy right there. I don't know what it is. That is not going in the house. Trust me. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, what we'll be doing is I need to add about that much to the bottom. Now this stuff is going to pack down. That stuff's going to pack down. So I can put this to where this is right to the top. In about a week or two, it's going to have sunk at least an inch. Almost guarantee it. In 2 years, it will have sunk 9 or 10 inches, just like we see here. So hopefully this is going to last a couple years. I am a little sad that I let it go this long, because look how long these stems are. That's not really healthy. That's not what I should have let it do. So I want to start encouraging these smaller growth by letting the sun get right down here closer to the bottom. So let's get started. I'm going to pour part of this in here. Again, bugs, insects, weed seed. This doesn't go in the house, okay? I'm going to put that over here. And I'm going to take about half of this bin and stick it in here. So now, this thing is full up to about here. Okay? So this is a big old hunk of wood. You know what? I'm leaving it in there. It'll actually hold moisture for the plant as it's digging down, looking for those more nutrients. So I'm going to just take this root bulb, and you really shouldn't hang it from the plant itself. I know people do it all the time. They grab the stems. Sometimes you break the stems. Hopefully it'll grow back. I am a little careful with these because these are Mrs. Bowtie's special plants. She really likes. She doesn't make a lot of requests in the garden, but this one I did for her because actually I like these too. So you'll notice I kind of put it, the whole root ball kind of over to this side of the pot, because remember, I want to get this plant more in the middle this time. So I've got a good wide open space that we're going to start filling up with this soil. And I'm going to start using some of this compost. Lots of nutrients in here, folks. This stuff is over 2 years old. So this has lots of good stuff. It's been composting. Now, before I quite fill it up, I filled up most of it, but I want to stop right here. I'm about that far down now. I want to talk to you about some fertilizer for this. Now, there are, believe me, that compost, tons of fertilizer in there. And you'll see it's high here. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of that. But there is lots of nutrients in this compost. It is very nutrient rich. I guarantee it. I know it because that's what's making all this over here. So I do, because it's in a pot, I do want to supplement the nutrients in here. And I want to talk just very briefly about different kinds of fertilizer that you put in there. Now, first off, I only use organic fertilizers. You can make your own decisions on that. I'm not telling you this is the only way to do it. No, I'm not that guy, okay? I do have two of my favorite feeds here. I have for me, a Dr. Earth homegrown, organic, and natural handcrafted blend tomato, vegetable, or yada, 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 okay? I buy it at my local big box store, the Lowe's. And I also have a box of Espoma tomato tone. Now, you'll notice they both have tomato in them. This is more for the beginning of the life of a tomato. This is for later in the life of a tomato. And let me explain why that is. I'm going to show you this number right here. Okay, can you see that 463 right there? That 463 is the macronutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, in this bag of fertilizer, NPK. Almost every single bag of fertilizer has it on there somewhere. On the tomato tone, you actually have to go looking in the back. Oh, they've moved it again. Where'd it go? Where did it go? So this one is 463. Oh, here it is. It's on the side. Here we go. This one is 346. You'll notice the numbers are kind of in different orders. Now, when we use this, we're focusing more on that middle number. These three numbers, you can think of them as fertilizer for shoots, roots, and fruits. If you want green leaves, you want to focus more on the first number. If you want roots, you want to focus more on the second number. If you want fruit or flowers, you want to focus more on the last number, but also the middle number. You want to focus on the back half of this. So this, I actually do want some green out of these. So I am going to put a little bit of the Dr. Earth because it has a little bit more of the nitrogen in it. But I'm going to focus more on the tomato tone because it has more potassium and phosphorus in it. So between these two, it's going to get a lot of stuff, nutrients for that root system, and it's going to get nutrients for those flowers as well. And so I'm not so concerned about the first number. I don't know. I'm going to just do a little more on the back end here. So as I go in here, what I'm going to do, I have a little scoop in here. Now, organic stuff looks a little chunkier. It's not like the chemical stuff that's everything is uniform little modules. These are, in effect, slow release. They will feed the plant for a year because these actually need the biome in the soil to consume the nutrients and make it ready for the plant. Now, there is some stuff in this ready for the plant to take up right now. So it's actually going to start feeding right away, but it will continue to feed throughout the next year or two until I go through this process again. And so I'm going to take and I'm going to spread this around the edges here. I don't think I had quite enough. I don't know, I might have put a quarter cup in there. These videos are my own log, so I can go back and look at this video later and figure out what I did in case this fails or this is successful. So, in fact, if you have your favorite stuff, share in the comments what you use to feed plants like this, if you do. This actually looks a lot the same as the other stuff. We know it's a little bit different complement of nutrients. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to mix in a little bit there. This stuff is actually, some of it's going to wash through, down through the soil, and it'll get mixed in. I'm going to do a little bit of just tickling it with the fingers, you know, just making sure it's mixed in with the soil. And now I'm going to go on with the rest of my compost. And I'm getting it as full as I can. I'm even packing it in just a little bit. I know I got a little mound right here. Hopefully we'll be taking care of that. Time will take care of it, but I am filling it pretty close to the top here. It is good to leave a little bit of a lip around it just so it holds water inside the pot. You can puddle it a little bit in here. But one more side over here I need to address ever so slightly. Now incidentally, this compost, it has sand in it, it has nutrients, it has all kinds of stuff in it. So hopefully this is going to be one happy plant. And that's it. Let's do the other one real quick. I'll see if I can do a speed up the video a little bit. Put this over here out of the way. Cue the theme music. And there we go. Both of them have a good amount of soil in them. They're a lot higher. The crown is almost at soil level. That one's a little bit deep. This one kind of became a mess. I had to actually scoop it off. This soil will sink down. This will actually sink down as well. A little bit prouder than I like. If I can get this thing to sink below this level, I'll add a little bit more compost to it. But you can see, job done. Now before I add a few gallons of water to these, I'm going to go ahead and put them back into place, and we will resume this video there. So here we go back out front. If you watch our garden tours, the first part, you might recognize this. This is the front hedge, and these pots actually normally sit there and there. I've got them up on 5-gallon buckets so we can get them in frame right now. But I also have right here a couple of 5-gallon buckets with about 4 or 5 gallons of water in them, and we're going to water these right here on camera. Reason why I'm not using a hose right now is because all my I'm a handyman. All my hoses are tied up on a job right now, and I don't want to go unhook them, break down the job, and then bring them back to the job and set it back up again. That's a lot of work. Got about 400 feet of hose over there, literally attached to a building being used. So anyway, you can do it however you want. You can use buckets, you can use watering can. I am sticking about 4 gallons in each one of these because I want to make sure these things have soaked through thoroughly. And this one over here, remember, is the one that was up a little bit. We're going to see if we can get it to sink down some. And I know it was. Oh yeah, there it goes already, an inch. So everything will start settling down here, and by the time I add all this water, whew, heat, Florida, it's going to be a warm one. We are in Destin, Florida, so we have to put up with that. But anyway, so, and hopefully here pretty soon in the part 1 of the garden tours, you'll be seeing these looking a lot better, I'm hoping. So I hear water seeping out the bottom of this one. Now, and there is good drainage in both these pots. You never want to have a pot like this and not have drainage for your plants, unless you're running a fish tank. Maybe plants that need that kind of treatment. But yeah, it's running through pretty good. Got another bucket here, but I can already see this thing here is sunk down a bit, probably about 1 inch, and I have a feeling this thing is almost at the level that I want it to be. I'll be able to add a little more to this. And yeah, it's running out on the bottom, but I am making sure that every bit of soil that I put in here is as wet as it can be, and let it free drain out. So yeah, I'm going to be adding about 1 inch of soil around here, which is what I wanted on this one that's sticking up a little bit. Yeah, so that was easy, wasn't it? Tell me in the comments. Just really, it's a matter of just do it. Just get out and try it. And you know, worst comes to worst, what do you do next time the mums come around to the big box store or wherever you got them from? Get some new ones. Try it again. So I'd like to say, for all those of you who have subscribed, thank you so much. You have literally made Bowtie life what it is today. We are trying to reach one more goal. At that point, we'll be able to do a lot more than we can do now. And so we're working on it, and hoping to bring you better content once that happens. I will be coming through here, trimming these up a little bit and giving them a fresh new start. I'm very excited to finally have this done and get to see what new growth comes out of these. Y'all have a blessed day.